unmute yourself. All votes must be taken through roll call process, and during public input, you must state your name and address prior to your question or statement.
Next slide, Jim. There you go. Yep.
All right. Oh, God. All right. The town of Littleton began conducting remote participation Zoom meetings pursuant to Governor Baker's emergency order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law on March 19th, 2020. Since that time, unanticipated legal concerns relating to the open meeting law have been brought to our attention by the town clerk. Those concerns were supported by the Attorney General's office and confirmed by town council. One concern is that the chat function allows a parallel text conversation to a board's public meeting. Chat is essentially running commentary that is occurring but is not moderated or followed by the chair. All participants and listeners may not be aware of comments being made because some meeting participants join by phone and do not see these conversations. Another concern is conversations between residents within the chat room which are not incorporated into the public record. In response to these concerns, the town will implement the following changes, which in no way prohibit any member of the public from participating in discussion and sharing information during a public meeting, and will ensure that all listeners and participants have equal access to this meeting. People that join the Zoom meeting are set so their microphones are muted. If you called in by phone, please use *6 to mute or unmute your phone. So that the meeting can occur in an orderly fashion, we ask that people who join keep their microphones on mute so background noises do not interfere with the meeting. If you wish to participate in the meeting, please use the raise your hand function available on Zoom, or if you called in by phone, dial *9, which will activate the raise your hand function. The meeting host will notify the chairperson of the raised hands, and the chairperson will determine whether and when to allow public comment. When called upon, participants should unmute, then state their name and address. After speaking, we request the participant return their microphone back to mute. You guys heard that, right?
Yes.
Oh, all right. No, read it again. All right. So the meeting's been called to order. I believe we're not doing the Pledge of Allegiance remotely. So do we have any commissioner updates? Kevin, anything? And he's muted.
Nope, there we go. No,
right.
I have nothing to add right now.
All right, Mike, any updates? And Mike looks like he's actually frozen. Or is he moving there?
He's there.
All right. Mike, you have any updates? You have to unmute your mic.
Yep. No, I don't.
Okay, so now we've got some minutes that Alicia sent us to review. So have you guys had a chance to look those over?
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, why don't we do that now then? And I believe those are the minutes from 6/1, 6/9, and 6/24. Does that sound correct? Oh.
Nope.
Okay, well, the 6/1 minutes were in your email. That's what I was looking at.
Oh, sorry about that.
It's 624, correct?
6/24, 6/09, 5/22, and 5/22. We had a special meeting with the Board of Selectmen and Board of Health. And then after that, special meeting with Board of Selectmen and FinCom.
Do you want us to review all these minutes?
Well, she did send them out a while ago. Okay, all right. You know what? The ones that are dated 6/1 are the special meeting minutes.
Yep. I mean, you guys can decide if you want to put this off and wait till the next meeting. We could revisit it. That's okay.
Well, the 6/9 minutes discussed.
That was the last regular meeting.
Yeah. if you guys can just quickly review the minutes from 6-9 and 6, and the 6/24 meeting was pretty quick. We'll worry about the special meetings. We can let's table those for the next meeting. Fair enough?
Sounds good to me.
All right, so when you guys are confident with what you've read, I'll take motions to accept both sets.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes, both minutes.
All right, do we have a second, Mike?
I'm still reviewing.
Okay.
Hey, Tim, if you're listening, I'm trying to log in on my computer.
I thought so. We had actually approved the minutes from 6/1. If you look at,
Right, those aren't here, Mike. The minutes we have are 6-9 and 6/24 for our made. The minutes that are labeled 6/1 are actually the 2 May special meeting minutes. So we're going to table those for tonight.
okay.
But there are meetings from 6-9 and 6/24 that we need to deal with.
I don't have the 5/22.
Mike, those are the ones. There's an email that came out today with 6 attachments to it.
Okay.
There are the 2 that are labeled 6/1 are actually the minutes from 5/22 that we're not going to discuss. The ones labeled 6-9 and 6/24 are the correct minutes for those days.
Okay. I'm good then.
Right. So do we have a second
I'll
for
second.
the?
Yep.
All right. So all in favor, Kevin?
You gotta do, yeah, roll call. There you go.
Kevin, can you hear us again? Kevin was trying to switch computers.
Yes, I heard it. Yep, I'm a yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm I as well. So the minutes for 6-9 and 6/24 are approved. All right. Sorry, I moved the agenda. All right, we got this. So we want to do the gazebo
Yep.
now
Yep.
with Leah DaCosta. So, oh my God. Sorry. Somebody set off our smoke detectors. Okay. Oh,
You
and I'm
can't
not
make,
even going to say what the obvious thing is. So,
Where's Sean Sullivan? That's what he specializes in.
Alicia, do you want to take care of unmuting Leah?
I
It
got
looks
her.
like Leah's already unmuted.
Yep.
And there she goes. Now, I had the little mic thing on there. All right. So, Alicia, I'll let you lead the questioning. I'm not quite sure where to go with this.
Absolutely. So Leah had reached out to me to see if the Park Commission would allow her to use the Faye Park gazebo for a vow ceremony on Saturday, August 8th. Because the department is not taking any special event requests for spaces, those are the things I'm putting on the agenda so that you guys can make the decisions if you want to allow those or not. So Leah's here tonight. So Leah, some of the questions that we do have whenever we go through these sort of event requests are, what is your COVID-19 management operation plan? How many participants do you plan to be there? Do you have a rain date? And then the fee is $25 per hour. And anything that would be more than 2 hours, then the park commission would make a decision on whether you would need to rent a porta potty or not. So I can go through all those questions again, but Leah, I'll hand it over to you if you want to talk about your event a bit.
Sure. Alicia, just thank you for the opportunity to join your meeting tonight. So it's really short and sweet. I'm looking to host my wedding ceremony in the gazebo. We'll have approximately 7 to 10 participants with us that afternoon. It'll take place on August 8th. Right now, we're estimating a start time of between 3:30 p.m. and 4 p.m. Immediate family, we will adhere to all state guidelines in terms of social distancing. I would say start to finish, no more than 30 minutes. This is purely just the vow ceremony as you shared. And then afterwards, our family members will return to their homes, and my fiance, then husband, will then go out for a private dinner. So it's really short and sweet, just looking to exchange our vows in that beautiful gazebo. Our original wedding plans were supposed to take place in New York State, and given the pandemic, that obviously can't happen. So we bought our first home together here in Littleton. We love Littleton, and we thought, why not make it official at a place that we love. In terms of an operation plan, I work in events, so I didn't come prepared with that. So forgive me, but if there's any other questions that you have, and if you'd like more details, I'd be happy to offer them.
I can work with you on that after. That's okay.
Of course.
I don't have any further questions.
Kevin?
Nope, I don't have any questions.
All right, I'm good as well. So we have to vote on this, correct? So do we have a motion to allow Leah and her? Okay, go ahead.
Make a motion. It seems like we're following, the state guidelines. And you're aware of them. So I'll make a motion to allow for the use of Faye Park gazebo for exchanging vows on August 8th.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor? Kevin?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm I as well. So congratulations.
Yay.
I'm trying not to cry right now. Thank you so much. And I think it's your birthday as well.
It is.
So I'll count that as good luck. Thank you for your understanding. And obviously, given the circumstances, it's been a rough few weeks. So I greatly, as does my fiance, greatly appreciate the allowance for the use of our wedding ceremony. So thank you.
Sure, good luck.
All right, congratulations.
Can I jump off
I'll
now?
talk with you soon.
All right, great. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, so now we're going to move on to Eric Love. Right, do we want to do that one since that was next year? And
Yep.
He wants to do a LARP program at Faye Park. Now, Eric, I'm going to jump in and see if I remember what Alicia said, but do you have a plan, the number of participants, that sort of information available for us?
Oh, well, I believe it was the police chief, Matthew, reached out to Todd Wood, who I work with and is my partner. So Eric Love over at 47 Foster Street, Milton, Massachusetts. And he asked us to kind of run something for the community pro bono at Faye Park. And so I've reached out to you guys to see if that could happen. He wanted us to just run an activity for kids. Now, as far as numbers go, adhering to state guidelines, it's a 10 youth to 1 adult ratio right now, with social distancing, masks, and no shared gear. So this would probably turn into not so much a LARP program, but more of a drama theater escape the room meets a treasure hunt for kids. Depending on what age groups that the community would like us to reach out to, we would then change that. So the age groups I suggest would be like 5 to 9, 9 to 12, 13 to 16. The environment would change depending on what those age groups were, what people thought the community would like to see us work with.
So where are you based out of, Eric?
I'm in Littleton on 47 Foster Street.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, but we've been running stuff over 10 years all over New England. So in the before world, we would do weekend events or residential camps with 50 or 60 kids, 20 or 30 staff, and we do after-school programs and day camps and so forth.
Is there a specific program that you're with, Eric?
It's called Larp Adventure Program. I own the company.
Okay. All right.
You can find us online at larpadventureprogram.com. It really hasn't been updated for what's been going on with COVID. We've been kind of like doing our best just to keep along, but there's a little bit on there about online classes that we've been doing and things like that. So the marketing's a little confusing, but our philosophies are there and our approach.
So do you have an idea of if there's going to be a cost for the participants and what you're looking for as far as like days and times?
Mm-hmm. As far as days and times, I was looking at the calendar, and I'm assuming a Saturday would be best for families on a Saturday afternoon because a lot of people work. So maybe August 1st. And I think it would just be Todd and myself that would do it. So it'd really be, we'd only could take, a group at a time for an hour. So say if we had this broken up as 3 different age groups, or we don't want to do all those age groups, it could be an hour, then 45 minutes off an hour, 45 minutes off an hour or something like that. But the most we could do at once then would be 20.
Right.
Yeah. Unless there's some other thing that I've missed or we have guidelines in our town that are different. I know it varies from town to town.
So it wouldn't be 20 together. It would be 20 in the individual groups.
10 and 10 pods. That's right. 10 and 10. Yeah. Because as far as we have a COVID policy, we also have a waiver too that we could draw up and change the language to include you folks or whoever else. But it looks like that's all that you can do as far as numbers, as far as what I understand from the CDC and also from Baker's regulations. But it's strange because when you get into sports activities that aren't sports that have contact, those numbers disappear. So I'm not sure where it falls, to be honest. So I'm defaulting to the safety number, which is 10.
So there's a document, I'll send it off to you, but there is a specific place that actually lives.
That would be helpful. Thank you.
That your particular program, if you go to the mass.gov website, will fall under the outdoor recreation, adventure, and education programs. It's a whole document specifically for that stuff. And if I'm not mistaken, you'll actually have a 1-to-12 ratio right now.
That's what I originally thought too, but the person who wrote my licensing doc argued me down.
All right, so can we get an outline of what your plan is and how your numbers and how you're going to limit everything? Sort of what you just said, but actually put it in writing and get it over to Alicia or Tim, so that if somebody comes back to us with some questions on how are they doing this or what are they doing, we've got some background or some backup. I don't think it needs to be terribly in depth, but just sort of here are the 7 things that we're going to cover. Is that fair?
That sounds fair, absolutely, Fred. And then do you have a preference for age groups that we work with? Do you want to focus on one age group for the community, or would you like to see a kind of every age group?
So that's I wanted to go back to the what the cost is to the participant.
Okay, so it's whatever you guys want. We usually would charge something like this for an hour would be starting at $325 for 10 people, 2 hours, $525, and an event would be $728. But we're just going to do this for free for Littleton as a, appreciate the town, So.
Gotcha. So if you said Matt from the police department was the one that spoke to you, had contacted you. So what was his ultimate, idea behind this?
Oh, well, he spoke to Todd Wood, who's my roommate and also works with me. So the idea was Todd was telling him about what we do, and he said, that's really cool. I'd like to see kids get together and be involved in an activity like that. So that's my yeah.
So, Eric, are you guys quarried and e-sorried as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. First aid CPR certified. We have a registered nurse who looks over our paperwork, okays it annually.
Do you, so I have some familiarity with LARP programs, and I used to run residential camps. I know that the seed packets and sometimes the Nerf bullets are used, and I would always, they would do a pretty good job of cleaning up after themselves with that stuff, but there was always, stuff around. So, like, do you foresee using those types of things?
That's a great question. So typically we would use those, and then we practice leave no trace protocol similar to what you'd find in Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts at Bound. But I don't know if we can use those, because as far as I understand, I'll look over these outdoor adventure and education outlines put down by Tim, but as far as I understand, there's to be no contact of any kind, even with equipment. So we couldn't use the boffer foam swords. We could not use the birdseed packets for spell casting or any of that. It's just going to have to be kind of, like I said, it's kind of turning into more of an escape room meets treasure hunt type of experience for the kids. And it could be centralized in Faye Park, or we could take them up into the woods and go find some stuff in the woods in groups or something like that. So.
Yeah. I think if anyone doesn't have, if no one has any more questions, I think we sort of tentatively maybe agree to it, and then once the plan comes in to Alicia and Tim, I guys can agree to it with contingent on the plan getting to Alicia and Tim.
All right, that sounds good. So, Mike, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, the plan getting to them and then looking over and approving it.
Okay, so do we want to make a motion to approve this based on those contingencies? Yeah.
I mean, Alicia and Tim, I assume that Ken T has been running well. I haven't heard anything to the contrary. So it seems like that's running well with groups of 10 or 12 at this point with kids.
Yeah, we've been running it. I think the max that we've had is around 50 kids for the whole program, and each of those are broken up into 5 different groups with 2 instructors. So, that has been working out really well. Actually, they had their first inspection from the Board of Health last week and passed with flying colors. Jim Gareffi gave them so much praise and just said, they were setting a very high bar and standard. So, that's kind of kudos to Kaz on that for pulling that together. But it's definitely doable. It works really well as long as you have the protocols in place. We do our, the morning attestation reports every single day. So we check in with the kids, and yeah, it operates really well.
So that's a 5-to-1 ratio. Are you comfortable, with a program? Do you feel like kids follow it? With a, 5-to-1, 10-to-1, 12-to-1, that would be fine.
With the programming that we've had in place, so we've been running the sailing program, we've been running Camp Tehadawon and a Teen Adventures program.
And kids tennis. Sue has 8 kids in that program, and it's
for tennis, yeah. So those all have been going. The kids have been really great. The issue, and Eric, this is just a heads up for you, is with the younger ages. So with all of our programs, we chose to not allow kids that had not entered kindergarten yet, because we find in our camp program that a lot of the camp time with those kids is sort of teaching them how they're going to be when they get into kindergarten. So those aren't skills that they've learned yet. So the younger kids take a lot more time and have more difficulty with the social distancing as well as keeping the masks on. So that was something that we made a decision this year that we would only, bring in kids that were kindergarten up.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like focusing on the middle school kids is a good idea. The other questions I had too is, and I know you guys are still talking about the voting, but is porta potty and also notifying the public how those are 2 other items that would be questions for me.
So if So this is kind of where, if you were going and doing a program through us, that's something that we can arrange with you. But since you're, asking to do this program on your own, you would be responsible for bringing in the porta potty, as well as doing the advertisement for the program.
What about that avenue you spoke to, Alicia, about us working through you?
That's possible. We can do that. But the understanding that I had for this specific request is that that was something that you guys wanted to do on your own.
No, I'm not. That's not my attachment. I just really, it sounds like a nice thing. We know a lot of the families on the street, and we see the kids suffering, and they're bored, and they're not. And people are concerned about their mental and emotional health right now. So Littleton has helped me out, so I'm just trying to help Littleton out.
Gotcha.
Something in the future too, so I think that it could be something we could work together on.
Absolutely. Yep.
Castle in the Trees LARP.
Yeah.
It would be a good place for it.
All right, anybody got any other questions?
I just I wonder if part of it should be the we should require the attestation, just like for camps, of the participants. I don't know.
Okay.
And that's something, Eric, we already have a form, so I'm willing to let you just have that and copy it.
What is that? I'm not familiar with that, Kevin.
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So basically, it's a form that parents fill out, just saying that their kids they haven't spent time with someone that they know has COVID. They don't show symptoms of like fever, and Alicia and Tim, help me out. I forget all the things on it. It's like fever, if they have just symptoms of COVID, and basically it's the parents attesting to the fact that the kids did not exhibit those symptoms the morning before, morning of the event.
Mm-hmm.
And then we ask them if they've washed their hands and do a temperature check. If they haven't washed their hands, they go to the bathroom and wash their hands, and they can join the group.
Yeah, this doesn't have to be at Faye Park. I think it was just where Matthew pointed it. We could always move the location too to be something that's more suitable.
Yeah, and I think like the hand washing part could be sanitizer. I think I don't think it has to be.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, so do we have a motion to approve this based on the contingencies we've discussed?
I will make the motion to approve it based on the discussed contingencies.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor, Kevin?
Yes.
Mike?
Yep.
And I'm I as well. The motion's approved based on the contingencies. And Alicia and Tim, you'll keep us up to date, correct?
Indeed.
All right. So now we have the request to use the baseball field by the Mariners. I know there's been some emails flying around today. I guess, Alicia, if you want to give us a summary of where we're at, does that sound reasonable? Or do we?
Well, Dan's here, so I don't know if, Dan, if you want to represent this, it's completely up to you.
I can try. It's not my team. I can.
Right.
So, first of all, none of that was. Well, let me introduce myself. Dan Shuffrin, 156 Mill Road, president of Littleton Baseball. So I didn't kick any of that stuff off. Just so you're aware, like that was all happening unbeknownst to me. So
Okay.
I'll start with that. I think this is a follow up from the last meeting that I attended. I don't know if it was the last meeting that you had, but at that meeting we had discussed as part of phase 2 the requirements for the use of the fields, and that included submitting a safety plan, right? And then the discussion was also, once the phase 3 guidelines came out, we would talk about or need to have another discussion around the use of the fields for games, assuming that was allowed as part of phase 3. So in between that, we as a league, Littleton baseball and softball, had made the decision that we were not going to be conducting any formal games or practices as part of the summer season. So I wasn't really pushing anything. Mike DiPietro, the varsity coach, has a summer team for college-age kids. And in the past, he's used, it's based in Littleton, so most of the Littleton players play on a team, but he has to augment with some players from other towns. So he uses Littleton as sort of his home base. When we had approved the use of the fields, it was my understanding of the motion, I haven't seen the minutes, but it was my understanding the motion was for Littleton-based teams. I think Mike Prue made the motion at that meeting, which would, at that time, include teams like the Littleton Mariners. So in between that meeting and now, on behalf of Mike, I just sent in what his safety plan was to Alicia to approve, knowing that we still needed to get together again to ultimately endorse play for Phase 3, but said, is there a way to at least distribute this ahead of time and say, assuming everything else is the same, is this an acceptable approach from a safety standpoint to allow the Mariners to play once Phase 3 is opened? So I think that's where we're at now, where the safety plan has been submitted, Phase 3 has been officially announced. You guys are meeting to essentially endorse whether it's okay for I guess the Mariners to follow that safety plan and play games on the Littleton High School baseball field. Does that sum it up, Alicia?
Yeah. The follow up, and I kind of wish that Mike would have been here. So apparently their season started like a week and a half ago. So unfortunately, the timing of this is not on. But realistically, the Phase 3. The information that we were moving into Phase 3 came out on July 3rd, and then any details about what we could actually use came out on the 6th, which we've put together, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight is updating the field usage guidelines for Phase 3 for the sports organizations. So that'll come later in the afternoon, but from the emails going back and forth, it sounds like Mike wasn't interested in moving forward with this. I'm not really sure. I don't know if you have any more on that, Dan.
I don't know exactly. I know he's been working with other towns to secure fields.
Yeah.
My feeling is, we as OIBS are hoping to do a fall program.
Yeah.
Of some sort. I have no idea what that looks like right now.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'd like to do is say, why don't we maybe use what he submitted as a safety plan as a surrogate for baseball teams that would like to use the fields? And if that's sufficient for the commission, then we would use that as a template for us going forward for other teams. But in terms of is Mike actually going to plan on using the fields? I don't know. If he is, I think what we had said last time is we would use our internal site for scheduling for the use of all the fields, and I would just say, well, we'll do the same thing, and then make you and Highway aware that that's where all the schedules will be, but I can't speak on behalf of Mike of whether he's still planning to use the fields or not.
Right. So you were saying that you would schedule the Mariners through your scheduling system. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if that's going to happen, then they do have to have an approved operation plan. So, I mean, I guess, Dan, if you're here, if you feel comfortable being a representative, to set this up so that if they do want to move forward with it, that they can, because otherwise then this is a missed opportunity, and that just sets everything back further, which I don't want that to happen. So I don't know how you feel about that.
Well, Mike's not here, so I guess no, it's fine. As I said, I think if we use what he sent out, it's very similar to what the guidelines we've gotten from the Babe Ruth organization for basically and my younger son plays in a club baseball team, that they're already playing games. They're basically the same things.
Yeah.
So assuming that you guys are okay with the operating plan that he put together, it mirrors essentially what everybody else is doing in the other towns that we play and what they're doing in their towns.
Yep.
So I would be comfortable saying, like, all right, that's how we would go forward with things as well. As part of phase 3 in the fall. I mean, we probably need to come back and have a discussion anyway, but I'd say that would be our plan. So if you're comfortable as a commission with that as an operating plan, then I'd say that's probably the template that we continue to use.
I think that's fair.
Are there questions? I'm happy to answer them or try to answer them. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was saying, because I'm looking at the plan on another screen. I don't know if the other commissioners have it in front of them.
Was that sent out? I'm not sure that I have it.
It came in the email with all the minutes.
After.
Okay.
It was right after.
No, I think this one actually, yeah, maybe. I have so many emails from Alicia here today.
Oh, I see.
No, this one was in the minutes email. The Mariners specific plan.
Yep, I see it.
Now, we've got a plan from one other sport in already, correct? Alicia, Tim?
So right now, the Mariners was the only one at this point in time that put in a request. However, today I did have a gentleman, I think it was Jay Wells, that wanted to put in a request for Littleton Hoops to do a 4th grade boys skills and drills out at 300 King.
Okay, all right. That I missed. You know what? This was in, I think. I don't know. I thought there was one from somebody else. I was just curious as to how it compared.
Yeah, that's
reading
the
it,
only one
looking
right
at the
now.
guidelines, it looks sufficient to me. But does anybody else have any input on that?
I'm looking at the the safety plan, and it's like the safety plan that most youth programs that are running right now. It's all the same stuff that we're all trying to enforce, and I think it's a challenge enforcing a lot of these things, but people who run youth programs know that, and I don't see anything that's out of line or out of that should prohibit this from going forward.
And nothing missing?
I reviewed it too, and I would agree.
All right. So what do we want to do here?
I mean, you can approve and say that you're fine with this management plan, and if he decides that he wants to come back and use the fields at a later date, then he's set and ready to go. He can just make that request and we can move forward.
I think Dan was also requesting to make this baseball as a whole's blanket plan for when he's ready to fire things up as well. So I just wanted to make sure that attachment was on there. Is that correct?
Thank you, Tim. Yes, thank you, Tim. That's correct.
For what it's worth, Dan, just if you want to resubmit it with a different name on the top.
Yeah. I think
just so that there's no question that that's covering the Littleton Youth Baseball as well. But
yeah, I'm happy to do that, Fred. No problem.
Thank you.
I think the challenge is, it's still a few months away though for the fall. I think the guidelines can change. So I think it's a good plan, but I think it's probably subject to if the phases go, in the direction they're going. But if there's a step back for one reason or another, I'll have to revisit.
Mike, I think that's totally reasonable. I think the way I'm looking at it is we could still start practicing, now or getting people out in the fields. I think what we would just like is from the commission standpoint to say this plan as of right now is sufficient to follow for however we want to use the fields. And if there is some type of change, of course, we would have to come back and have a discussion here. But as long as the conditions stay the same, then this is sufficient for us managing our games and our practices on the baseball and softball diamonds.
Okay, I'm good with that. Do you need a motion?
Yeah, we do. And I think maybe, to take it a step further is let's make the motion contingent upon, and you guys figure out how to do it, that the plans will always be subject to review should the state guidelines change at any time. So that the approval is contingent on that. And if, the governor or somebody comes out with something new in a week, then we'll revisit it. Fair enough?
Sure. I'll make a motion to approve the Littleton Mariners practice plan, as well as it'll cover the Littleton youth baseball under that umbrella as well, and it'll be contingent and should be revisited if the guidelines for the pandemic, warrant it.
I'll second that.
All right. All in favor? Kevin?
Yes.
Mike?
Yep.
And I'm I as well. So that motion's approved unanimously. Oh my God. We all voted yes. So,
If there's, can I ask a question real quick on that, just to clarify, because things are changing so rapidly? Do you, if it's a minor change, like numbers of people or stuff like that, are you guys okay authorizing Alicia and I to make sure that they meet the guidelines rather than forcing everybody to come back through another park commission meeting?
I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, my guess would be that if they change the numbers upward, it's going to be somewhat irrelevant. And if they change the numbers downward to make smaller groups, there's going to be other changes that are going to need to take place.
Well, I guess the best way to look at it is if we have to go back to phase 2, we already know what those guidelines are. And I can't really imagine them reverting back because they seem to have worked. But if they change them, we'll revisit that. And then if we move forward, we're talking about phase 4, which is we have a vaccine and, we're kind of going back to whatever normal will look like now. So, I think we're kind of in that sweet spot of, I think we'll be in 3 for a while, hopefully, knock on wood.
All right.
I'm also willing, if we have to have a special meeting, we had a few of them, last couple months, and I understand the landscape. So, I think we can meet again. So.
Okay.
All right. So we're all set with Dan.
Great.
Thank you, Dan.
I can sign off. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Dan.
Bye-bye. Have a good night.
Good night. I lost, my screen just changed, so I don't know who's here. We have other people waiting. Was there some other topic that we want to go to before we do the reorganization and put Kevin in charge?
We have the
Glenberry for basketball.
All right. So do we want to discuss that now?
That's up to you.
Number 5.
Sure.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to be accommodating, which I'm not normally. So it's just. By the way, I could not say unanimously. I saw this thing somebody sent out that people having trouble remembering what words were, and somebody was asking what's the word for water hungry, and they said, "Oh, you mean thirsty?" So, all right. So, is Glenn here to get a plan approved for skills and drills? And do we want to sort of discuss the decision that the fields are staying closed, or how do we want to handle this? In other words, what topic would probably drive the discussion in the most fruitful way?
If you like, you can ask Glenn to, talk.
Okay, I wanted to make sure that that's why he was here, that he had a plan for skills and drills.
You can ask him.
Yes, I do not. Hi, I'm Glenn Barry, Grist Mill Road. I'm also on the board for Littleton Youth Basketball. So I don't have any plan. I was really just wanted to listen in and see what the status was and where things go from here. I mean, I guess I will help. I mean, I know Jay Welts, wants to do skills and drills. So does Dan Fusco as well. But they didn't ask me to present anything. I was more just trying to learn on where things stand. I didn't even know if that was an option. I just thought it might be closed well into the future, and so therefore then if we submit a plan, it's not going to go anywhere because there's a fence around the court. So
at the last time we had a phase change, we met as the park commissioners, and they decided at that time that it was all of the fields and the courts would be closed. However, if any of the youth sports organizations in Littleton came to us with a management plan, that we would work out a way to be able to get them access to fields or the courts. So that's been on the table, I think, since middle of June. And then, Jay reached out today. So I told him I would give him an update tomorrow because we have guidelines for phase 2. So tonight we're going to talk about the phase 3 guidelines. They change a little bit, not too much. And so I wanted to make sure that Jay had the most up-to-date information before we move forward with, me trying to help him out with a management plan.
okay.
All right, so I believe, and I'm at a loss, I thought we discussed this a little more thoroughly. So at the 6/24 meeting was when we voted that we would be reopening the playgrounds
Correct.
upon the start of phase 3. And at that time, we discussed some of the fields, but we did not, we discussed the basketball courts and decided that we were not going to reopen those immediately at the start of phase 3 and sort of see what came down the road. And
Correct.
Subsequent to that discussion on the 24th, the Board of Health has met and they've recommended that the basketball courts not be reopened. If I'm right, their approach was they approve activities, and since opening the basketball courts is not an activity, they weren't going to vote that they would not allow them to be reopened, but suggest that we don't vote to reopen them.
So let me clarify that, Fred. So the reason that the Board of Health did not take a vote on the basketball courts was because, so they only voted on Camp Tehadawon and the beach because both of those locations have a permit or a license through the Board of Health. So that was the only reason that they felt that it was their responsibility to actually take an official vote. Which they have not in this case. They have given the recommendation that they would suggest to keep the courts closed, but because there's no licensure or permitting involved with the Board of Selectmen, that they felt it wasn't their place to take an actual official vote.
So I think to piggyback on that, just to add the other piece, is that, we're talking about opening the basketball courts in that sense as we had opened Castle in the Trees. It was just open. There was signage. It was for anybody to use. Where right now, the board recommendation would keep the basketball courts closed to the public, but the youth groups, we could authorize with the appropriate management plans just at the fields. Because just like the soccer and baseball fields, we said as long as there's a management plan, they can play, they can practice, and it reverts to closed status to the public as soon as they're done. So that would be what we'd be looking at for the basketball courts. In my opinion, I think that would be the best route to go, because then we can get, another avenue opened up. Just like we have kids tennis, we can get some of the kids out there doing skills and drills, as Glenn and Bo had mentioned, but we never saw a plan come through for that because we were ready to do that last month.
That's my understanding as well, Tim.
Now, at last night's meeting, the consensus among the selectmen was that they did not feel that the court should be reopened. Is that a fair statement, a fair interpretation?
Yeah, so there were, it was just open for discussion. Again, they weren't taking a vote. So there were 3 of the selectmen that definitely said that they would recommend not moving forward with opening the courts at this time. It's at this point, it's up to you guys what you want to do. But having a recommendation from the Board of Health and the Board of Selectmen, you do have to take that into consideration.
Yeah.
All right, I'll start with sort of my take on this, and some of you may have seen what I wrote. Was I've been in probably 25 communities in the past week and a half, and I've seen basically 2 situations and sort of no gray area. The situations are courts are closed and there's nobody on them, or the situation has been the courts are open and there's full court or half court, but 5-on-5 games taking place, full contact, no distancing or anything else. And I don't know how to explain it, because I did see on the football fields in Waltham, I saw kids playing a rather aggressive game of people close together, but on the other fields, less crowding. But the basketball courts, any courts that I saw were open, had tons of people on them, and that led to my feeling that this was probably not the time to reopen them. That while we could, if we let the youth kids get out there and they do skills and drills, we've got really no control over it the rest of the time. And my other concern with that is they're right there with all the people and the families at Castle and the trees on top of everything. So,
Fred, why can't we leave the fences up and still do youth sports?
if you can do that and you can get them in and out and then close it,
There's plenty of room to do that.
I just look at it that if somebody goes by and sees kids out there, they're going to, people will find a way in. It's not going to stop them. I honestly watched this at some tennis courts down in Connecticut. 2 women probably in their 60s trying to break into the tennis courts, and finally ended up having to army crawl under barbed wire to get onto these courts for 15 minutes. And I thought, boy, you really want to play. So, if you're not stopping those Fairfield, Connecticut matrons, you're not going to stop a bunch of kids determined to get out. But that's just my opinion. So let's move on to the other people on the commission.
So
I think, go ahead, Kevin.
no, so the guidelines say that basketball is high risk, right?
Yeah.
And the recommendation of the state is that it should not happen, even skills and drills, or that it should.
Skills and drills allowed. It's scrimmaging and drills that are close contact. But dribbling drills, shooting drills. I think that is a fair game under phase 3.
Melissa, you want me to put up the thing?
Yeah, please. Mike, that's not quite correct.
No?
No. So they would be considered a high risk. So we're waiting for, there we go. So this is the updated reopening guidelines, and I did add these in for clarification. So when individuals are going to request a permit, that they can review all of this, and it helps them to create a management plan. So I wanted to make sure that all this information was in here. So a high risk sport is one that involves close, sustained contact between participants, lack of significant protective barriers, and high probability that respiratory particles will be transmitted between participants. So the way that the state has come out with these COVID-19 guidelines is that the higher level risk, they're only allowed to do individually and socially distant group activities. So that means skills and drills only for, and the examples were football, wrestling, soccer, rugby, basketball's in there, lacrosse, ice hockey, competitive cheer, martial arts, crew with more than 3 people in a boat, and ultimate frisbee.
So skills and drills. I don't think I said anything incorrectly. Shooting,
You
dribbling.
said scrimmages.
No. I said dribbling and shooting. Yeah.
Okay, I thought I heard scrimmages in there.
No,
My
no.
apologies.
Can't do that. I
Nope.
understand.
Yep.
I think if somebody like Glenn, for instance, had a group of youth that he wanted to do skills and drills with, and is willing to monitor the kids and the use of the court during that time, I would be comfortable with it. As long as the court is closed afterwards, and we could even put a sign up and say that this is for subject to youth management plans, if we feel like we have to do something like that.
So we would do 2 things differently, maybe one thing differently. So in the past, we've actually put up laminated sheets that said when the courts were reserved for these groups. So we would continue to do that, as well as we would do a more official permit so that the coach could have that permit on them. So if somebody comes up and asks any questions, they have that permit available to them to show that they've been approved Park Commission and the Parks and Rec Department to use that space.
Makes sense.
I'm for this, and letting skills and drills, the Glenn and Bo and Dan, I know them all, and I know that they're definitely looking out for the best interest of kids and all that. What worries me is the other people, like the enforcement of the other people. It could get really kind of messy where, are the cops gonna enforce people being on the courts? Like who's doing the enforcement part of, oh, well, we saw kids out here yesterday doing skills and drills, so we thought it was open, so now we're gonna go and play a pickup game. And who's going to be the enforcer? Are Tim and Alicia or park staff going to have to go down there and try to kick people off the courts? How's that going to work?
In other locations, we did talk about this at our MRPA regional meeting last week, and at other locations that have been opening, they do have staff that's down there that would be akin to what we're doing at the beach right now. So having folks to be able to monitor and to enforce and, let people know about the guidelines that they have to follow. But, at this point in time, we just got through a really big deficit this last year, and we're just kind of scraping by this summer with staff. We don't have any extra funds to fund somebody to be down there. If it was a normal year, sure, we'd be able to figure it out, and we're pretty good at being resourceful and trying to make things happen really quickly. But right now the whole town is in a spending freeze, so it's not something we can really move forward with that as an option.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't doubt that the 3 folks, Glenn and the other 2 folks, Bo and Dan, have the best intentions. It's not anything about them. I think I've driven by the courts, and at 7 a.m. on a beautiful Sunday morning, there's people there, and at 10 o'clock not 10 at dusk at on a Tuesday, in prior years they've been playing on those courts. So I just don't want us to get into a situation where the enforcement of the other people becomes an issue.
Well, and I think, to me, even worse would be the fact that we can't enforce it, and everybody's going by looking and going, everybody said let's keep them closed, and look at all the people out there now, and they're not following any of the guidelines. So why are we following the guidelines in our endeavors?
I think the argument, just the only thing, looking after after the conversation we had last time, you know, it's no different than the baseball and the soccer fields right now, and that's kind of, I think, where the pushback from the general public as far as getting out there, you know, with the guys who are looking to do skills and drills with the teams, is they would like to have that opportunity to afford it to them, the same as the other sports organizations are being afforded in the same way.
And I agree with that as well. I think that, you know, we've had a lot of discussions about the courts themselves and opening them to the public, and I think that that's one conversation. But you know, I do think that we should still have the space accessible to, you know, kids that will go through this management plan. And you know, if we start to have issues, then we need to come back as a commission and make a decision on what we need to do to move forward. Or, you know, maybe we have to have a conversation with the police again. You know, I think there's other things that we could do, but I don't want to take that away from the kids. If the coaches are willing to take the time and abide by the management plans and, you know, put that in, I really think we should move forward with that. But that's my opinion. You guys can do what you will.
I think this is the one thing that got misconstrued the last time when I said, you know, it goes through Parks and Rec. You know, what I was trying to really get at in that I didn't articulate well is that the youth organizations get with us, and let's just say that it's Tuesdays and Thursdays only from 6 to 9. You know, that's something that we could manage much better, and if we need to have somebody down there, we could, and then we can tell, you know, the police department or whomever is willing to assist with the management of it that anytime that's not these times, there should be nobody on these fields, just like all the other fields in town.
Yep.
I mean, if you guys are comfortable with dealing with that aspect of it, then I don't see any reason why we can't do what we're doing with baseball. And so is soccer play? Like, is soccer playing or no? That right? Is that still? But they have the opportunity to do skills and drills if they want to.
They do if they want to. I actually, that's been on my list to reach out to Bobby to talk about that. But the last that I had heard is that, you know, they weren't going to move forward with anything for at least the summer. So, and then this puts us, it's just awful. It puts us in this limbo place of, you know, going into, they've just lost their whole spring season. And now, you know, are they going to end up losing their whole fall season? I hope that's not the case. But, you know, not knowing where, you know, the only seed of hope that we have is that we are in phase 3, step 1. So I don't want to get people's hopes up, because I think we all had hopes up that in phase 3, they were just going to say, like, you know, get out there and play sports. And clearly that didn't happen. So, you know, the seed of hope is that, you know, in phase 2, maybe those things will change, or maybe they'll loosen up some of those guidelines. But it's hard, because it's balancing a fine line of safety for the whole community and that want and desire for people to get back out there and have some normalcy to their lives, because it's so important. But, you know, in the middle of a pandemic, I think, as you guys being a policy board, you know, being responsible, we end up having to lean towards that more conservative side, because the liability is on us, not anybody else.
Have we been in the position of having to kick people off the soccer and baseball fields?
No, I've heard, I've had a few complaints of people saying that there were teams out there, but I've never seen it myself. When I've gotten those phone calls, I usually ask, you know, did you ask who they were? And then the response is no. So if there were, again, I haven't seen anybody. So, you know, if anyone out there is listening and you guys see other organizations that are out there, please find out who they are and let me know, so that I can contact them, so that we can get a management plan set.
Well, I'm sorry, Mike.
I do know groups, you know, for instance, the soccer teams are practicing an alumni, but that's different.
And that alumni is not under our purview, so that's something that's up to the school, how they want to operate that facility completely.
Yep.
Yep.
I mean, my question is, since we haven't had to enforce anything on these other fields, although we've opened them up to sports that have a plan, what do we have a bar? Do we have a bar set for the basketball courts that, you know, we're going to kick people off 5 times or 20 times or 40 times? And at what point do we say, well, you know what? Nobody's adhering to the guidelines.
Yeah.
This isn't working. And again, you're talking about there's limited parking there. And, you know, if you get 20 people showing up to play basketball, there's no parking for the Castle in the Trees. So we need to address that issue, I think. But the other thing is you're going to have these people with their kids and their families, particularly if they're in the parking lot and you've got kids, you know, or groups of adults out on the basketball courts not following any of the guidelines, which, regardless of how safe it is going to stress people out that have their children there, I think.
So again, I just want to be clear because I think there's 2 conversations going on. So one is the discussion about opening the courts, you know, to the public or not. That's one discussion. And then the second discussion is the basketball youth programs being able to use that space if they put in an operation management plan with the COVID-19 guidelines. So I just want to stay on those 2 because I feel like they're kind of blending and they really shouldn't. They're 2 separate things right now.
Well,
We're only discussing the latter. So we're only discussing the latter. That's where I believe we're at.
right, but if we're opening the courts to the youth sports, then what happens when they're not using it?
Then we can easily, you know, remove a little portion of the snow fence, allow them to go in for their reserved time, and then close it up again. It's that simple.
Okay. I mean, if we can do that and keep people from opening it up, not that we can't.
I mean, another concern you had, Fred, was the amount of people and the limited parking spots. So perhaps, you know, with a management plan, maybe we limit, you know, for specific times, how many participants will offer a youth program to run, or also in conjunction, maybe opening up a few spots during that timeline. I think if you have the timeline later in the day that was being discussed, you know, maybe 7 to 8 or something like that, then possibly not as many people at Castle in the Trees at that time.
Tim, will you go back to that document?
Yeah, is it unreasonable to ask to close Castle in the Trees on that day at a certain time so that the basketball groups can come in?
I think the playground closes at 7, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
So that would be ideal. There would be no.
Yeah, but I mean, it's already 8:20 and it's, you know, getting dark out. It's only 8:20.
So hold on a second. This was something I just amended this from the phase 2 opening guidelines that you guys approved the last time that we met. And part of that was staggering practice times to allow for the clearing out of parking lots. So if we're going to work with the basketball organizations, you know, maybe we only allow one group at a time. There's not a ton of them at this point in time that are coming and asking. Right now, I only have the request from Jay. So we start there. And so if we have to stagger that either by day or by times, then that's something, you know, we can work out in-house in the department. But that was part of the agreement on the last one, and I left it in this for the updated version as well.
Yeah. And to answer Fred's question too about tolerance, I think if we have a management plan, I think you adhere to it. I have no problem with 0 tolerance. You know, if we say no scrimmages and no games, and I don't think this would happen, but let's say a game happens, then I have no problem with zero tolerance.
Yeah, my concern isn't with the youth people doing it. I mean, they're smart enough. If they're having to jump, you would hope that after having to jump through these hoops, they're going to follow the rules. So, All right. Well,
Alicia,
so,
I just had one more question, Fred. Sorry. So, Alicia, can you go, like in this document, there was a limit of participation. I think it was like 25 people per surface.
Correct.
Because the court is much smaller than a baseball field, don't we think that, and I know there's a square footage that's associated with, even in outdoor spaces, I think it's like 36 square feet per participant. It's got to be available.
Correct.
Should we limit the size to whatever? I don't know the dimensions of a basketball court, but I think whatever the dimension is and whatever can accommodate 36 square feet per participant, including coaches, we need to make sure that that's being adhered to for the basketball courts.
I agree. 25 seems high for a single court.
So the 25 was in this updated document from the Outdoor Recreation Task Force. That was all the information that they gave. So, there are pieces of this document that aren't super clear. I think there was in another document, it might have been that Executive Order 43, where it talked about like 100 people total, but I think it was interpreted as a facility. So let's say that you have 3 baseball diamonds in one area. Then you have 25 kids, playing each other, plus coaches and whatever staff. By the time that you have, those 3 fields that are completely full, you've got space for 5 spectators. There's definitely some interpretation needed in these guidelines, and hopefully that will get more guidance as time goes along. But again, you guys are the ones creating the policy, and the reality in accordance to Executive Order 43 is that each town has the right to make the decisions and policy as they see fit.
I would just say then that, at least for the basketball courts, whatever, the space inside the snow fences, whatever that measurement is, we use that to determine the 36 square feet per participant, and then go with that. And I don't know if the 36, it's changed a couple times, the square footage sort of requirement. But, I think we just go by that, whatever that square footage is.
I see the Howski looking down, which means he's doing his super amazing math skills and figuring it out for you right now. The man can calculate square footage by looking at something, and I have never met anyone that can do that.
Took me off my game.
I can tell you, I don't know if I want to interject. I can tell you that court's probably 80 by 45. So call that about 3,500 square feet.
well, the smaller court is about 58 by, not 58, by 100. Roughly, and that's the outside perimeter. That's including the little,
yes.
You don't want people just smashing into like a fence right on the end line.
Yeah, whatever yeah.
So,
Yeah, the inside's like 80 by
right,
45.
let's assume you got the whole thing. I mean, if I'm shooting, I'm chasing the ball up against the fence anyway, so I'll be away. I'd be away from everybody. So what I say, it's about 58 by, so it's 5,800. And if you need,
we all have calculators on our iPhones here. Why are we trying to do this by?
So
Yeah, Mama has
I
it.
think I'm trying to do it, but I think rather than waste our time doing this now, we have them submit the plan and we tell them how many kids we can fit in there.
Yeah.
That would be my vote.
I agree.
I think whatever's comfortable and fits in that 36 foot minimum and allows kids to be able to drive to the basket or do whatever it is, that's what we'll set the number at, and we'll talk about that on a case-by-case basis when the plans are submitted.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'll get you those numbers in a minute.
It looks like Eric had his hand raised, so it's up to you guys if you allow public comment.
I like.
yeah,
I just like had. I was like, believe it is. Be like,
yeah, sure. If Eric, I think we should take some public comment now before we vote or make a motion on anything. So that's fine with me. Alicia, you see who wants to talk, and you can just tell us.
Yeah. So
Please.
it looks like Eric.
Yeah, just to go back to Fred's concerns about public image, I understand that more than anyone else from doing 20 years of LARPing in parks where people have called the police on us because people are wearing armor with swords. So what legit. So what I found that worked if we were in a new location is we would just put a statement, a sign out front about what's happening, right? So in this case, I imagine it's a special case. The courts are opened. You guys probably maybe talked about this. I just missed it because I was writing an email. But it just says this group is using this time, kind of transparency for this purpose, and that's it. So when people are driving by, there's no confusion. Well, why are they there? Who's that? What's going on? It's like these people are here for this time, for this purpose, and they've been approved by, if you wanted to say by you guys, whoever. And so that lets people know when they drive by, okay, this makes sense. This isn't just a bunch of kids who got on the court and are doing like whatever. I don't know if I'm hitting that right, Fred, but I heard your concerns and I thought they were legitimate. I just wanted to put my 2 cents.
Oh, no, that's exactly it. And I'm more concerned. I think if people see an organized group out there, they'll be fine with it. It's when you look and it's, a random group of people that nobody recognized that they're going to say, well, why are they letting them get away with this more than anything? But thank you.
I think it's both, Fred, right now.
Both?
Organized and non-organized. You're going to hear about it regardless.
Yeah, the sign will just let them know who to yell at.
Yes.
That picture of Sean on it with his phone number underneath.
Exactly, right? He's not here tonight, so he's the enforcer.
Yeah.
So what do we...
Well, what happened to was that it? Is Eric the only person that's got any comment?
It's Eric and Glenn that are just guests here right now. The rest of it.
Okay. Glenn, was there anything you wanted to add?
Oh, yeah. I just appreciate all your consideration and your time, and that was all. Thank you.
All right. So if we vote, then it will put you guys in the position of having to drop a plan and get that approved. Fair enough?
Yep.
All right. So if we're going to do a motion, do we want to talk about, it will be based on a decided number of participants per surface to be determined prior to acceptance of the plan? Does that make sense?
Yep.
And probably a specific time frame.
So I think what might be helpful, and you guys can do with this what you will, is if you review that document that Tim had up there, and if you approve that, then that allows us to just kind of move forward and work with the sports organizations to develop those management guidelines with them.
I mean, I'm good with it except for, the max group size. I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with it.
So we can amend that, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if we just amend that to, max group size is determined by available space and, guidelines set forth by the state, with something to that effect. So we don't put a number for a blanket number. Every group is going to have a different number.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to accept the Phase 3 reopening guidelines, Littleton Athletic Fields and courts permitting maybe, or fields permitting, with the amended, the amended recommendations on group size.
If that works, I'll second it.
All right. I would just add, just change fields in the title to facilities. It makes it consistent with your first sentence, and then there won't be any question from somebody saying that's not a field.
Well, I think there is a difference. I think you have, I mean, it's not that we're splitting hairs. I mean, a field, soccer field is a lot larger than a basketball court.
No. I'm just saying change the title to say Littleton Athletic Facilities Permitting.
Okay.
That's all. And that's consistent with the next sentence. All right. So we've got the motions made and seconded. All in favor, Kevin?
Yep.
Mike?
Aye.
And I'm aye as well. So that puts the ball in Glenn's court. Oh, that was horrendous. I didn't mean that. Honestly, I did. It just came out. So, Glenn, you guys can work on coming up with a plan, and that will go to Alicia and Tim. And Alicia, you'll make the change in the guidelines, and then I guess you'll figure out a way to get the courts open and closed for them, and we'll come up with some sort of schedule.
Yeah, as long as we have a schedule, that's something that I think we should be able to work it into our calendars. We'll figure it out. If not, then that like we can have that conversation with the groups, and just if there's something that's like let's say that it's like this, it's a Tuesday night and it's a prearranged meeting that I have and I can't get out of. Either we can see if our staff can, assist and help, or, we can talk with the groups and see if we can rearrange what that, date and time would be.
Glenn has his actual hand up. He does not use the raise your hand function. Go ahead, Glenn.
Just make a comment that for the skills and drills, likely we're not going to take up a lot of parking spaces because parents are going to drop their kids off and leave.
Yeah.
It's probably only going to be the coaches, right? So we're not going to have 15 cars there because kids are just going to be dropped off and they come back an hour and a half later or something.
All right, that's. I mean, Tim's suggestion, depending on the hours of actually having Castle in the Trees closed to sort of prevent groups from running into one another, might not be all that bad. I mean, typically, and it's been a long time for me, but 7 o'clock, you don't have a lot of kids at Castle in the Trees that aren't going to bed already, correct?
Yeah. Well, the park closes at 7 now.
Yeah. I just was picking that sort of time frame, but
that's why I was just saying, like, there may be, let's arbitrarily, I'm saying like Tuesdays and Thursdays, the park closes at 5, so they can get more people through there spread out the way Alicia had written it. Sorry, I gotta shut this door. My dog is whining that he can't come in.
Yeah, I don't see, that's something we can discuss down the road, but I mean, it makes sense. And I don't, again, you've got younger kids at Castle in the Trees. It's time for dinner and all those other things starting at 5 or 5:30 a couple nights a week. I don't see a lot of, I'm not going to say this, so people may be annoyed. We'll have to discuss it. All right, anything else?
Yeah, you guys have to take a vote.
We did.
Did you do
Did
the
we
roll
vote to
call?
accept those guidelines?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Oh, somehow I was writing and missed that. My apologies. So for the Phase 3 athletic fields, you guys are set with that. But we also do have to go and make a vote on the basketball courts themselves too. So we haven't done that yet.
So that
All
would
right,
be
so we'll need a motion to approve opening the basketball courts for Littleton Youth Basketball upon acceptance and approval of a written plan, correct?
No, because you guys already did that at a previous meeting. I guess what I was talking about was for just general use of the public.
Okay. So we actually haven't even discussed that then.
We kind of have on and off a little
Yeah,
bit.
but we have not had an overt discussion on opening the courts to the public in addition to allowing Littleton youth basketball on them. So,
Well, now you get a chance.
all right, I'll start. I don't think we should. For all the reasons I voiced earlier, I don't see it feasible that people will be going out there and heading over to the courts and just doing skills and drills. I would be stunned if that's what happened.
I agree with Fred. So,
Do you have the motion? Sorry, Mike.
I have
Do
a
you have
motion.
for the sports fields that we can just reiterate and insert basketball courts? Because that was, if the youth sports weren't on them, they revert to closed status. And I think if we keep everything the same language, it just makes it easy.
and that's already in that document you were showing, so I think we're covered.
So the original vote that we took previously was that they would be available to youth sports organizations in Littleton, but they would revert to closed status.
I would just add, I don't know if we can amend the vote already or if we have to take a new one, amended to say something to the effect of Littleton youth sports with approved management plans.
Here, sorry to interrupt, Kevin. Here's the motion. To keep, and I'm reading the old one, to keep athletic fields closed at this time, but to allow Littleton youth sports to turn in COVID-19 management plan to obtain a permit for skills and drills.
Yep,
so
that's
So
perfect.
we would just substitute basketball courts in there.
I think that works.
Yep.
Okay, so if you've got the minutes from the 9th, you can make that motion, Mike, because you made it then. It's on page 2 in the middle.
I don't know why we need to make another motion. I mean, it's no change in status, right?
That the basketball courts are closed?
Yep. No,
I guess that's a fair point.
nothing's changing from our last motion that was passed.
Yeah, actually, this motion covers everything. It doesn't,
Yeah.
It's not specific to any sport.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right, we saved some time on that vote.
All right. So you guys, I'll just write in the minutes that you guys are agreeing with the recommendation of the Board of Health and the Select Board.
Correct.
All right.
All right. So I know we hopped around a little bit. Tim, can you find where we left off? I think we were going into the reorganization.
So do you want to, while we're here, cover mosquito control, reopening, or do you want to skip this for now?
It's up to Fred.
Fred,
You lost me. Where was that?
number 2 in what you're reading right now. We're on Alicia's director's report right now.
Oh, okay. Well, let's
Let's go over it. We're here.
yeah, let's do it.
All right, let me pull this up. Okay, so we talked about the athletic field permitting guidelines. So mosquito control, they, we're back into the EEE season and West Nile season again. I have already put in the request to the Central Massachusetts Mosquito Project. It's like whatever their long title is. They've actually come out as of the beginning of this week, I think it was Monday, and sprayed all of the athletic courts as well as all of the park spaces. I will keep on top of that with them. So just a heads up. And for the public, if you want to contact that organization, as long as you're not in a right to farm community, you can have them come out and they will do it for free. So it's, a nice service that the state provides. just kind of quickly, the reopening plans for town hall. The reality is that we have to go through with the fire chief, as well as our building intendant. I always get Ed's title wrong. Do you
Ed
remember?
Mullen,
Yep. What's his title though?
building inspector.
Building inspector. So him as well as Scott Wadinsky, our fire chief, to get approval that we have met all the guidelines needed before we can open. So at this point in time, we still have a lot of work to do in our department as far as moving some desks around and building some cubbies and things like that. All of the plexiglass and the installation of hand sanitizers throughout the building, as well as signage on the floor of where and how people should space. All of that stuff is already done. But I think realistically, the town was not really looking at fully opening up again until like mid-August. And even then, I think it was going to be kind of like a soft opening. So they're encouraging any of us that if we're being asked for face-to-face meetings, that we schedule them and hold them outside, like in the courtyard. Or if anyone's going to come into the building, they have to get approval from the town administrator. So we're still kind of a bit off from, just fully opening town hall at this point in time. Tim, do you still have that up?
I do. So your next thing is the removal of COVID-19 safety signs at Castle in the Trees.
Yep. So I went out on Monday just to check and see how the park was doing. And all of the COVID-19 safety warning signs had been removed from the playground. And so in my search of trying to find out, like, did they blow away? What happened to them? I found them all kind of mashed up together and shoved into the Littleton Free Library that the Girl Scouts built a little while back. So in talking with some of the town staff, the suggestion was to call and make a police report. So I did do that. So there's a police report on, if you want to call it vandalism, but that's just something I'll have to keep an eye on down there of making sure that those signs stay up. Because that's an important piece of, being able to have the playground open to the public at this time. So that is everything in a nutshell. Any questions, comments, and concerns about that?
This is it.
All righty.
I have to sign off right now.
What?
No. Just kidding.
What? So this is up to you guys. Somebody has to nominate, and then second, and we have to do the roll call vote because we're doing a virtual meeting. But these are the positions that we have to reassign and reorganize. The other thing, keep in mind, sorry, Mike. We still do have one seat that's open that we should be getting information over the next month if there is interest to fill that seat. So if there is any applications that come through, I'll let you know. And at a Board of Selectmen meeting, we'll have a joint meeting to discuss, if there's multiple individuals, who we want to bring on.
Does it make sense to wait until that individual comes on? I think at this point, we've been managing with Fred Charing, and he seems to be doing a reasonable job. So, does it make sense to wait till we get that fifth?
You could, the big thing that I would need, and, you guys can decide that Sean can continue to do it, is the individual that would be the authorized AP packet and P card signer. So Sean has had that in the past. And yeah, if you choose that you want to, put it off for a month, you could do so.
Status quo, just keep the status quo until we get that fifth member. You know, because there's enough here that, you know, we probably, you know, that person might want to have a chance to be involved in one of these roles.
Yep.
And again, Fred's doing a great job if he doesn't mind, you know, staying on his.
Just to clarify, Mike, I'm not chairing. I'm just reading the agenda for everybody else. So let's keep that in playing. My own personal.
He's dictating. He's dictating. So Fred would like to be known as the dictator, not the chair.
You know what? That is so close to what somebody on another commission called me one time. So let's just stop there. My own personal opinion would be to at least hold off until Sean's available and can participate in some of these. I think we can leave him signing stuff as it is now. He's comfortable with that, but at least give him the opportunity to chime in. And I'm on one of these other committees that I don't think has ever met.
Which one?
I don't know. You'd have to look at the minutes.
Space needs.
Space needs, yep.
Oh, okay.
Space needs, yeah.
Doesn't exist.
Well, it does. I think we've got like a substantial portion of the new library assigned to us.
No. So if you've noticed, I have changed the title to Town Building and Space Needs Representative, because Tim is correct. The committee itself has folded, but we still do need that political support from you guys in that arena, because that's something, you know, with us being on our enterprise fund, we really need that support to find space to, you know, have programs move forward. So, you know, that individual will be very important to Tim and I being able to accomplish our goals moving forward into the future.
Okay, that's fair. That was a good point. One thing, and Sean's not here, but we can talk behind his back. I had a conversation with Nina and John.
Joe.
Oh.
Layden.
I got his name right in the email. I had a conversation with Nina and Joe the other day about some things, just going over sort of the history of how the department's gotten to where it is in the past 20 years. But one thing she suggested that we seriously take to heart is becoming stronger advocates for the department and for Alicia and Tim in terms of dealing with some of the other departments that were sort of in the background, I think, a little bit, and perhaps become a stronger voice moving forward. And I'm not saying I know how to accomplish that or that what we need to do, but I think she made a good point. I think we need to sort of step up and let people know where we are. I know some of the other departments look at us as sort of just this group of people that want things their own way and sort of march to their own drummer, and that's really not the case. Not saying it's the case. Do not start crying. It's not the case, but I think it's sort of the perception, and I think that's a perception more a remnant of previous administrations than the current group. But you know, you've got people that have been on commissions for 20 some years, and maybe like me, they need to get off a little bit. But no, I think it's just something to think about and maybe discuss when we've got Sean here and we're reorganizing the board and just taking sort of a stronger role in standing behind the department. That's all I've got. And they were, by the way, they were both very complimentary of the things that the group does, which they didn't have to say anything, but they both had positive things. So, all right, are we all set?
I just want to review because we did some jumping around to make sure that we did cover everything. So the positions we're going to table until the August meeting. Let me go back through my minutes here. That we did. Gazebo, yes. Larp, yes. Mariners, yes. that, no. You guys made the decision on the permitting and had the discussion on the basketball courts. I don't know if anybody has new business. I don't have anything on here. We also do not have any old business.
All right. I just looked up. There's a little known state bylaw that because of his presence at this meeting, he's been here long enough. We can actually make Eric the chairman. So, good luck, Eric.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'm making a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Ah,
All right. All in favor? Kevin?
yes.
Mike?
Yep.
And I'm I as well. All right. Well, thank you all. We'll see you
Good night and stay well.
next
Good
month.
night, everybody.
Turn off the
Good to have you back,
recording.
Kevin.
You're not. Yes. Woohoo.
Great to see you.
You know, just for what it's worth,
Hang on, Fred.
if you
Hang
go
on,
back
Fred.
to go back to January or